You're playing blackjack and the donkey to your left stands on an ace-5. How much is his ace worth? If you said 11, you're wrong. Find out why you're wrong and how bad you're going to fail this blackjack quiz today on JackAce. What up, donkeys? JackAce here with JackAce.com, where we talk about my 3 favorite topics: gambling, crypto, and math. Today, you're going to fail the world's hardest blackjack quiz, hardest as determined by me. I'm literally a guy named after a blackjack. So go grab a scorecard and a pencil, and let's get back to the quiz. Like I said, if you answered 11, you're not exactly right. That donkey stood on an ace-5, meaning his highest possible total is a 16. And that's probably why you guessed 11. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. The donkey can only win when the dealer busts. And if the dealer makes a 17, 18, 19, 20, or 21, the donkey is going to lose. So the value of his ace doesn't matter. The value of the ace only matters if the dealer doesn't bust and the player can make a total between 17 and 21. Otherwise, the ace is like Schrodinger's cat. You know, that imprisoned radioactive kitty that simultaneously exists in a state of being both alive and dead. His ace simultaneously exists in a state of being 1 and 11, and it doesn't matter. He wins when the dealer busts, and he loses when the dealer makes a hand. It's Schrodinger's ace. So to score your response, give yourself 1 point if you said 11, 10 points if you said it doesn't matter. Question 2. You're playing basic strategy and you're dealt a heart 12 versus a dealer 3. How many of these 10 cards hurt you and how many improve your hand? Since you're playing basic strategy, you're going to hit and you're going to hit exactly 1 time. It's easy to see that there's only 1 card that can hurt you, and that's the 10. That's the only card that busts you. So how many cards will improve your hand? A lot of people will assume that the remaining 9 cards will help you, but they're wrong. Since you're not a donkey and you're playing basic strategy, you're going to stop hitting after just 1 card, even if you end up with a stiff total of 13 through 16. And because you were paying attention to the last question, you know that standing on a 12 will win in the same exact situations as standing on a 13 through 16. So if you hit your 12 and get an ace, 2, 3, or 4, your hand hasn't improved. So only the 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 improve your hand by giving you a chance of winning or pushing when the dealer doesn't bust. So the answer to part B is that there are only 5 cards that help you. Question 3. You're playing at a brick and mortar casino and you're dealt a pair of 5s versus a dealer 6. You put out your money to double down and you hear the dealer mumble a 2-syllable question. What did they most likely ask? Here's a hint. They usually point to the eye in the sky when they ask this question. When you have a pair of 5s, the dealer usually asks if you want 1 card to confirm that you want to double down as opposed to splitting, which some donkeys do. And they point to the eye in the sky for 2 reasons. One is that they're gesturing the number 1 so that you can confirm that you only want 1 card as opposed to 2 when you split. And number 2 is that they're gesturing for the security cameras in case you receive a 6 and pretend that you wanted to split. And this seems like a pretty trivial question, but you see new players get tripped up on this a lot. And if you've only ever played on a computer or by dealing to yourself at home, you'd never run across this situation. And if you're counting cards, you need to be prepared for these types of questions. The last thing you want when you're counting cards is for someone to break your rhythm and make you forget the running count. So 10 points if you said 1 card, 3 points if you said double down, 1 point if you said double or split, because neither of those are 2 syllables. Question 4. In the high-low card counting system, what is the highest possible true count? The highest possible true count is exactly 52. If you had 52 cards remaining and they were all 10s and aces, you would have a running count of 52 and you would divide by 1 deck, coming up with a true count of 52. In fact, whenever the remaining cards are all 10s and aces, you're always going to get that true count of 52. Of course, this means you're able to estimate the number of undealt cards perfectly, and you're able to divide by the number of undealt decks perfectly. Otherwise, your estimate might be wildly off. For example, if you estimate that there are 4 cards remaining and you have a running count of 5, which should be impossible, your estimate for the true count would be 65, which is also impossible. Question 5. You miraculously find a single deck blackjack game that isn't 6 to 5. You sit down and you get a pair of 7s versus a dealer 10. What does basic strategy tell you to do? Well, you definitely don't split, and surprisingly, you don't hit either. In single deck, you stand with a pair of 7s versus a dealer 10. And the reason is, with the 10 showing, the dealer is very likely to have a 20. In fact, they have a 15 out of 49 chance of that happening. And you've used half of the cards you need for a perfect 21. So there are only 6 ways to get a 20 or higher on the next card. 4 6s and 2 7s. In this extreme case, you're better off hoping that the dealer busts. Question 6. You probably know you can double for less, but when can you split for less? In general, you can't split for less, so if you said that, give yourself 5 points, but there are 2 exceptions. The first exception is if you've made a bet for the dealer in addition to your own. In that case, you can split your main bet, and the dealer's bet will move to one of the 2 split hands. The second exception is if you're playing in a casino where they allow multiple players to bet behind each other on the same hand. In this situation, there's usually one person sitting down making the main bet and making all the decisions, and the people betting behind don't necessarily need to match the split bet. Question 7, is it ever mathematically correct to double for less? If you're talking about your main bet, the answer is no. You double down because you have an extreme advantage. An advantage that overshadows the restriction of having to draw exactly 1 card. In many cases, it's a slam dunk because there are several cases where you would only draw exactly 1 card no matter what. And this is the case when you have a 10 or an 11 versus a 4, 5, or 6. In these cases, no matter what, you would only be drawing 1 card. And like I said, in this case, you have an extreme advantage, so it's in your best interest to double to the full amount. In fact, you would triple or quadruple if you could. But in situations where you might want to take multiple cards, you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to hit when you shortchange your double. Imagine if you had $101 and made a $100 bet and you received a hard 9 versus a dealer 6. In this case, if you were to double for less, you would only be gaining an additional $1, but you're robbing yourself of the opportunity of hitting multiple times if you were to receive a 2. So in short, anytime you double for less, you're leaving money on the table. You're wasting positive EV. Only time you might double for less is if you have a bet out for the dealer. You don't have to match that dealer's bet. And if you don't have enough money to cover a full double down, yeah, it might be better to double for less. But in reality, you probably shouldn't have played the hand without 3 or 4 units to start with. One last exception is if you're allowed to double after splitting aces, but you're not allowed to hit. If you split aces and receive a bad card, you may want to double for the minimum just to receive an extra card if you couldn't otherwise hit. Question 8. You have 2 options for playing blackjack. One casino with double after splits and the dealer hits on a soft 17, and the other casino has no double after splits but stands on a soft 17. Which casino has the lower house advantage? The casino that stands on a soft 17 is better for the player. Standing versus hitting a soft 17 is an EV change in the player's favor of about 0.21%. For decades, no Las Vegas strip casino would dare offer hitting on a soft 17. The general rule in Las Vegas used to be go downtown if you want to play single dick blackjack, and go to the strip if you want the dealer to stand on a soft 17. For many years, Harrah's was the only strip casino that had hitting on a soft 17, and now it's everywhere. And this is hardly a surprise after seeing how tolerant people have been with regards to 6 to 5 blackjack. Question 9, there are 4 cards left in the deck. 10, 10, 10, and ace. And in this casino, they deal down to the last card. What is the true count in high-low? What is your probability of winning the main bet? And what is your probability of losing the main bet? And what is your overall EV? As we mentioned before, the highest true count you'll see is 52. And even with this astronomical true count, you're going to win your main bet 50% of the time, and you're going to lose your main bet 50% of the time. 50% of the time you're going to win with a blackjack, 50% of the time the dealer's going to win with a blackjack. And I think this is a really important concept to understand because most beginning card counters don't quite grasp this. They think if you have a true count of plus 10, you're nearly guaranteed a win, and that's not true. Even though you have a huge advantage with a high positive count, don't expect to win every hand. A huge part of your advantage is the increase of what you win when you win. When you win, you're generally going to win more with the high positive counts. You're going to split more, you're going to double more, and you're going to receive more blackjacks. And it's true that the dealer will receive more blackjacks too, but they don't get paid 3 to 2 like you do. So now on to calculating the EV. 2 out of the 4 times, you're going to win 1.5 times your bet. 1 out of 4 times, the dealer will have an ace showing and you will take insurance and you will win that insurance bet, resulting in an overall push. 1 out of the 4 times, the dealer will have a 10 showing, flip over the ace in the hole for a natural 21, and you will lose 1 bet. So your EV will be 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 0 minus 1 over 4, which is 2 over 4 or 50%. And having that 50% advantage over the house is huge. All you got to do now is find a casino that deals down to the last card. Question 10 is our biggest question. This one is for all the bananas. You sit down at a blackjack table and you see a sign that says blackjack pays 6 to 5. What do you do? If you said grab your chips and run away, give yourself 1,000 points. If you also said insult all the donkeys at the table, give yourself an additional 2,000 points. And if you shouted something like, I heard only morons play 6 to 5 blackjack, give yourself an additional 5,000 points. So how did you do? If you scored less than 8,000 points, automatic fail. If you scored less than 8,000 points, that means you're not doing everything you can to stop the spread of 6 to 5 blackjack. In fact, why don't you go ahead and unsubscribe from my channel, because obviously you're not learning anything from me. And if you scored anywhere between 8,000 and 8,049, congratulations, you got an F+. If you got 8050 through 8059, D. 8060 to 8069, you got a C. 8070 to 8079, you got a B. 8080 and up, congratulations, you got an A.
Welcome to Eagle Fang Karate.
Eagles don't have fangs.
So I hope you didn't fail too badly. Post your score in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe. Always gamble responsibly, and peace out, donkeys.